Dr. Elsa, thank you so much for giving me an opportunity to be here. I really am so grateful and really excited. I want to tell you a little bit about myself before I kind of get into my story. My name is Vanessa. You can call me V if you want to. I'm married. I've been married for 17 years to a man named Stefan, which I understand is like the hot guy on the Vampire Diaries, which totally grosses out my 16-year-old daughter. I have 4 children. They all start with the letter K because we just like to confuse ourselves, I guess. But my oldest is 21. He's about y'all's age. He's at the University of Arkansas. He's a junior. Named Kaden. My daughter Kendall, she's my favorite daughter. She's here today, and she is 16. She's a sophomore. We live in Waco, so she goes to school up there. Then I have 2 more boys. Case, he's an 8th grader, and he's 14. And Kyle, who is 10, and he's in 5th grade. I think I got all that right. I'm not positive. We also have a dog named Crash, and a heifer named Starlet, whom we affectionately call Stella. And I say that really mostly to humor myself, because in the history of my whole entire life, when I thought of like what my dreams would be as a 41-year-old woman, never in all of my dreams in the history of ever, forever, and ever did I think that I would have a cow. Like literally, not metaphorically, but like literally have a cow. And I do. And it's great. I know that everyone says, like, it's such an honor and a privilege to be here, and I'm sure that they mean it. It really is an honor and a privilege for me to be here, and I want to explain to you why. My heart is so tender towards you guys and the age that you're at, specifically for 2 reasons. I'm just so affectionate towards you, and it may be like too soon because we haven't really even gone on a first date yet, but I really do love you. I love you, and I believe in your generation. I believe that you guys are just so full of promise and potential, and so I'm tender towards you because you're in this tension, right? You're in this tension, this season of life, this tension of great hope and anticipation and excitement, and like the whole world is before you, the world is your oyster, and you're making plans about your future, and there's an adventure, and it's exciting, and it's hope-filled. But then on that same spectrum over here, you are making really adult, responsible, heavy-laden decisions and choices. And so there's this responsibility and this pressure and this burden on this side, and on this side, there's this excitement and adventure. And I mean, in the wise words of Britney Spears, you're not a girl, you're not yet a woman, right? We're just kind of in that tension. And so I'm affectionate for you in that regard, because I understand that that's hard. And that can be burdensome, and that can be very scary, as well as exciting and hopeful. But the second reason I think I'm really honored to be here, and humbled to be here, and that I'm so just so for you, is because I feel like my generation and our culture has not done a very good job of equipping you for those decisions. We want you to be adults, but we haven't really taught you how to do that. We haven't given you tools that you need to make wise and healthy and life-giving decisions. You guys are bombarded, like I've never seen it in a generation. You guys are bombarded with social media and multimedia, and you have celebrities and politicians, what I'm not going to get into, but politicians and musicians that are telling you all these different messages. And so at the very best, the messages are confusing, and at the very worst, as a culture, we are lying to you. Because let's just play around for a minute. For example, some of the messages that you guys are hearing, specifically men, I've never known a woman to do this, but men specifically, if a woman falls on you in the elevator because you're wearing Axe body spray, it is because she has suffocated and possibly dying because of the ingestion of the fumes that you are wearing. But yet, culture tells us you wear Axe body spray and you will get all the women. I would tell a story, but 2 of my 3 boys are here today, and I don't want to embarrass them. But women, how about this? I'll just pick on the men. But women, how about this? Like waist trainers. What even is that? Right? Like when somebody says, I want to squeeze your guts out, that's never supposed to be taken literally. Ever. Which, by the way, I do. I want to squeeze your guts out. Or like Slim Fast. There is no fast slimming. It's a lie. It's a lie. But more seriously than that, I say those things in jest, but you guys are bombarded with these messages. More seriously than that, from musicians, and I need some help. I need some help here. So while we get drunk, so while we smoke weed, right? Help me out. So we're just having fun, right? And we don't care. We don't care who sees, right? Because why? Because we're living young and wild. I won't sing. I will in heaven. I'll be really good in heaven. But we're living young and we're living wild and free. And so you guys are just being lambasted, which that probably just aged me by using that word. Just with all these messages. And so I feel so affectionate toward you, like an older sister. I'm not going to say mom, because I'm young. But like an older sister would towards a younger sibling, and who's saying, hey, I've walked this road and I've learned a little bit, and there are people that are lying to you, and I'm really sorry about that. But they're lying to you. And so how, but yet in the same breath, we as a culture expect you to make these really good, wise decisions. But we're saying, hey, you do you only live once, pick yourself over and over and over again. Your decisions now won't affect your future. We say that. But in the same breath, we also say, oh, but you're the hope for our future. We're going to put all this responsibility on you, but we're not going to lead you or guide you well. And so that's the heart that I'm coming at you with today. I just want to speak truth. I just want to be honest. And you may be like me and you're going, well, how do I know that they're not going to lie to me? You don't, but I'm giving you 2 references. One, I'm going to use the Bible, which I believe is the source of all truth. And 2, I have my 10-year-old son here, who he can, and I've got my sister and dear friends, and they can all attest to whether or not I'm going to tell you the truth. But my 10-year-old son in particular, he had an assignment this week. And the assignment was, in 1 word, just 1, describe yourself. For somebody like me, who I love words, I am not very succinct, I'm not very concise. I can talk all day. I won't, because I'll get you to your 11 o'clock class. But I can't. He had to, as an assignment, say 1 word that described him. So at our dinner time, we have a question of the night. And we kind of flipped his assignment and we said, okay, which this can be dangerous. We were all in a good mood. We said, let's describe the other person, like people at the table, in 1 word. And so it was Kyle's turn, and he was explaining me, and I really, because I can be needy and need a little validation every once in a while. And so I'm thinking, here's the crescendo of here's my youngest kid, and the crescendo of all validation, and he is gonna say like that I'm awesome, or like the best, which is 1 word. And so he's like, I have a word for mom. And it was like that. He came up like that. He's like, oh, I know your word. And I was like, what is my word? He said, honest. I was like, okay. He's like, well, and kind. So those are my references if you need it. The Bible and Kyle LaRoe. Then I'm going to tell you the truth. My sister is here, and she told me, I really hope you go off your notes. I have a really bad habit of doing that, because she says that the unfiltered Vanessa is a lot more fun than the filtered Vanessa. So let me tell you a little bit about my story. When I was in high school, I was the quintessential good girl. I didn't drink, I didn't smoke, I didn't have sex, I didn't even go to parties. I was really well liked, and I say that with all humility. I was admired, I was respected, I shared Jesus, I was bold in my faith. I went to church on Sundays and Wednesdays, at camp rallies. I spoke, and I was like, let's take the pledge. He died for us. Let's live for him. And I meant it. I loved Jesus, and I meant it. My senior year in high school, we had an English assignment that we had to write a letter from our current self to our future self. So like 18-year-old Vanessa is writing a letter to 25-year-old Vanessa. I don't remember what I wrote in the letter except for one thing. It asked me what my most prized possession was. And since I'm not really a rule follower, I wrote down two things. I wrote down my Bible and my virginity. And I wish I could say that I wrote it with like humility and like a posture of God's grace has been so good in my life, but it wasn't. It was written in a really self-righteous attitude and posture. I know, it sounds like I would be great friends, right? You want to be friends with me in high school. But I went to Baylor my freshman year, still the good girl. And by the spring semester of my freshman year, I'd kind of just tested the waters, dabbled with rebellion, if there is such a thing. And so I had done a little bit of partying, and I was like, that's not me, too much of a control freak. That's not who I am, so let's kind of right the ship. So I transferred to a small university called Hardin-Simmons University. I know. I know. It was a bad decision. But don't hold that against me. So I went to Hardin-Simmons for my sophomore year. And in order to right this ship of all these kind of bad decisions, I decided I would lead a Bible study. Like, I didn't just participate, I led a Bible study on my dorm room floor, and it was called Becoming a Woman of Excellence. Except I wasn't. And I'll spare you all like the nitty-gritty details and the how and the why and the what happened in my life, but know this. There's a verse in Hebrews that says that we're to just throw off the sin that easily entangles us. So sin is easily entangling. I didn't wake up one day wanting to be in a life that was riddled with sin, but it happened over it was very subtle, and it was making a compromised choice and another compromised choice over a period of time, and then you wake up and you are just entangled in sin. I was entangled in sin. So while I'm leading a Bible study called Becoming a Woman of Excellence, at 19 as a sophomore in college, I found out I'm pregnant. I bet the 18-year-old Vanessa did not see that coming. Right? So at 19, sophomore in college, I find out I am pregnant. Now, culture, because of the messages that it gives us, would tell us that I could easily and quietly get rid of the problem. But being the girl who knew truth from a young age, I knew that what was growing in my womb wasn't a problem, but a baby. And I knew that before this baby even had a first breath, because I know that Psalm 139 says that God knits people together in their mother's womb, that I knew that God was knitting together this person, and that God was designing the personality and the gifts and the talents, the hair color and the gender of this child that was growing inside me. And I also knew, because Ephesians 2:10 tells me that this child is God's handiwork. It's his craftsmanship. That this child would be created in Christ Jesus to do good works that God's prepared for this child to walk in. And so for me, I could not quietly get rid of the problem. And so let me address the big elephant in the room. Again, from a place of where I am so fond of you and your age group. Knowing that when I was your age, I was faced with some really adult decisions. I'm not naive. I know that statistics say that 75% of Christian kids are having sex. I also know that 1 in 3 women are going to have an abortion. And I also know that there's probably a woman in here, if not 2, and if not a boy who's had a girlfriend who's gotten pregnant, who have quietly gotten rid and terminated a pregnancy. And so this is the part of my story where I wish that I could sit across the table from you, where I wish that we had a cup of coffee and I could squeeze you and I could hold your hand and I could tell you that with no condemnation or judgment in my voice, I understand. Because I bet that you think nobody understands what it's like to be scared and overwhelmed and embarrassed and shamed. But I do. I do. And so with no condemnation, I say I understand. I don't condone it, but I bet you don't either. And there's nothing that we can do about the decision that has been made, but here's what I know. I know because I've talked to way too many women and men who, when they make this decision, they get entrapped and they get enslaved into this pit where they go, I will never be good at anything. Or if anybody ever knew my secret, they wouldn't love me. And that is the enemy. Because Jesus comes to give you life, and he gives you life to the full. And when you make a decision that includes death, that doesn't mean a death for you. I wish that you'd made a different decision, but I bet you do too. So that's the elephant in the room that I want to address first and foremost. I'll be really quick with this last part of my story. Let me say this. I missed this part. When I say I'm pro-life, I am not only pro-life for the child, the unborn child, I am pro-life for the woman and the men that have to make those decisions. And Jesus is too. He is for you. He wants life for all of us. Oh, so back to my story. Back to me. I went on to get married to the baby daddy. And people are like, why'd you do that? And I'm like, it's not like I was making really good decisions at that stage of my life. I went on to get married. In fact, Dr. L participated in that wedding. He helped marry me. 6 months after that, I had a 10-pound baby boy. Thank you. Thank you. I did not even get a t-shirt. 10 pounds. That's like a man-child. 6 months after that, I filed for divorce. So I moved home at the age of 21 with 2 years of college under my belt, a 6-month-old baby boy who had, I didn't even babysit because I didn't even like kids. I'm sorry, kids, I love y'all. My family's right there. But I didn't even babysit because I didn't know it. So I had this 6-month-old kid, divorced, 2 years of college under my belt, and I have a suitcase full of shame and regret and guilt and fear, and I move home. But my story doesn't end there. Obviously, spoiler alert, I'm here. Having no money, I had to get on Medicaid and welfare and food stamps. I was a mess. I was a mess. My 18-year-old self would have been appalled at my 21-year-old self. She wouldn't even be friends with her. I refer to this season of my life, this 2 to 3 year time, as Hurricane Vanessa. Because I came in like a wrecking ball. Miley's got nothing on Hurricane Vanessa. I destroyed relationships. I didn't even love myself. And you can't love a child if you don't love yourself. There were dreams that I had to put on hold that I thought were dead. and there was destruction and rubble and ruin that I just thought was gonna be my life. So how does one 21-year-old Vanessa become this 41-year-old Vanessa who stands before you as a changed woman who knows that she's free? I feel like Kanye, I'm referring to myself in the third person. How does ruin and rubble get rebuilt? How does destruction become a creation of beauty? And so, very quickly, I think it's found in John 8. I'm going to read it really quickly because I think the answer is in John 8. It's a story of a woman who is brought to Jesus. He's teaching in the morning, and a woman is brought to Jesus, and the whole scenario really is because these guys want to trap Jesus and catch him saying something that would indict him. But this woman who is like physically in the act of adultery is brought to Jesus, so most likely she's naked. And this is what happens in John 8, verse 3. The teachers of the law and the Pharisees brought in a woman caught in adultery. They made her stand before the group and said to Jesus, "Teacher, this woman was caught in the act of adultery. In the law, Moses commanded us to stone such a woman. Now what do you say?" They were using this question as a trap in order to have a basis for accusing him. But Jesus bent down and started to write on the ground with his finger. When they kept on questioning him, he straightened up and he said to them, "Let any one of you who is without sin be the first to throw a stone." And again he stooped down and wrote in the ground. At this, those who heard began to go away one at a time, the older ones first, until only Jesus was left with the woman standing there. This is the important part. He straightened up and he looked at her and he asked her, "Where are they, dear woman? Dear woman. Has no one condemned you?" She says, "No one, sir." "Then neither do I condemn you," Jesus declared. "Now go and leave your life of sin. Leave the sin that easily entangles you." That last part was me, not the Bible. That's my interpretation. So did you catch it? How a life of ruin gets rebuilt. Jesus rescued her because the wages of her sin, the penalty for her sin was death. And she was rescued from that. Not only that, he took it a step further and he redeemed her. He said, "Does anybody condemn you? I don't either. I'm not going to condemn you. I'm going to forgive you. You're going to be redeemed." And then he restores her. He gives her a second chance. He restores her to a different life. He says, "Okay, now, so go, but don't get caught up in that again. That didn't end well for you. Go and sin no more." So like that woman, I did not deserve to be rescued, but he rescued me. I did not deserve to be redeemed, but he redeemed me. I like one of the definitions of, lost a paper. I like one of the definitions of redeemed. It was to reclaim possession. Jesus will reclaim possession of us. And like that woman, I didn't deserve restoration, but he restored my life because he says, "Go and sin no more." It's a call to freedom and restoration. So that's the gospel. That's what Jesus does. He rescues and he redeems and he restores. But there's one thing, and there's a lot of really smart theologians who have great theories about what he's writing in the dirt. And after I get to heaven and I ask him about the dinosaurs and JFK, I'm going to ask him, "What were you writing in the dirt?" And these great theologians have debated this, and they've got great theories, and they're fascinating. I have a theory that isn't very theological, but God whispered it to me one day when I was studying this. I wonder if he was just, in a very metaphorical way, saying, if you let me, I'll rewrite your story. Because he is the author and the perfecter of our faith. He is the finisher of the work that he has started in you. It's who Jesus is. He rescues, he redeems, he restores, and he will rewrite our story if we let him. So I thought it would be really neat because it's easy for me to say my life has been restored. And oh, by the way, this is something that happens over and over in my life. Jesus rescues. It's like I'm not very good at English, but whatever verb that is that's continuous, rescues. He redeems, and he restores, and he rewrites. I thought it would be neat if you didn't just take my word for it, but you took my son Caden's word for it. I called him when I found out that I was going to be speaking, and I said, hey, I didn't give him a lot of direction, but he's your age, and he's the child that was growing in my womb, and I said, it'd be really neat, because Caden is a physical representation of God's restoration in my life, and I want you to see that, because he's living proof of it. So I called Caden, and I said, hey, send me a video. Just tell me a little bit about what my role and my impact had on you. And this is what he had to say, and then I'll close and we'll pray.
Hey guys, my name is Caden Tony, and this is a picture of me when I played high school basketball. It's really important though. That woman on stage, I have the pleasure of calling my mom. And so Mom, I love you, and I'm thankful for you and just the impact you've had on my life, and the impact of this story that you're telling everyone has really taught me what grace is, and so we'll get more into that. But I think as I processed around 5th or 6th grade, as I began to process the fact that I had divorced parents, that my mom was younger than most people, there was some significance there, and I didn't really understand it at the time. But as I get older, our parents always tell us, like, oh, you understand someday when you're old. It really is true in my life. Just as I've grown up and as I've gotten to this age and y'all's age, and I hear my mom's story again, it really just resonates with me a little bit more, and I've had time to process it a little more. And so I think of a few what-if questions that kind of pop up when it comes to the fact that my mother had me as an unexpected child and at an age that, at 20 years old. And so a few what-if questions are, what if my parents weren't divorced? I think I struggle with that sometimes. What if I didn't have to travel so much? What if I didn't have to choose between parents? What if I didn't have so much family where I felt guilty when I didn't get to see everyone, or I had to miss somebody for a week, There's a lot of emotion that comes with having divorced parents, and I know a lot of you guys relate to that, and so that's one of the what-if questions that I really struggle with. The other one is, what if my siblings weren't so young? What if, I just had a normal family where my siblings were closer in age to me? What would our relationships look like? Because I think it's hard being out of the house and not getting to witness some of the most important times of their life. I think about just, that's kind of a consequence of this story. And another what if, and probably the one that is most important today, is the what if my mom had chosen not to have me. Whether that be giving me up for adoption or having an abortion, that is probably a hard pill to swallow sometimes when I think about that. Because I think about, first off, I think about how thankful I am that my mom chose to have me, and I think about how grateful I am for God's grace in our relationship and how it's turned out. But I also think about those of you in the room or those people we know who have made the opposite decision. And I think about the weight and the guilt and the shame they have in that. And I think about how there's no need for that anymore. I think about just the grace that me and my mom have been taught through our story, and the idea of no matter how messy, because it is messy, and I'm sure she's told you it's messy. No matter how messy our choices, consequences are, we serve a God who is with open arms ready to redeem and restore, and he can restore any consequence that we bestow on ourselves. And so I think that as you listen to my mom's story, if you're asleep right now, the one thing that I hope you hear is that we serve a God who redeems, and that through Jesus, who sees you as holy and blameless. And it's not a matter of punishing those who have made the wrong decision about pro-life. You know, it's more about the idea of pro-love and loving those who are going through this decision or who have made this decision and have chose something other than what my mom has. Like, we recognize the grace we've been given, and we want to share our story, but we also want to show love to those who may have made different decisions. So, thank you guys.
You know, sometimes I think that we think that God is a magician. He's not. He doesn't just make the consequences of your sin disappear, but he is a miracle worker, as evidenced by that. I want to pray for you guys because I really do love you and I believe in you. I'm going to be around after the second chapel up for lunch. If you guys want to talk about any of this, if you guys have made a decision that maybe is different than mine, or maybe you just don't know who Jesus is, I'm going to pray very quickly and then you guys can go to class. God, I thank you that you showed up here. I pray that you would bring freedom into our lives, that you would speak truth into us. God, that you would just resurrect the parts of our lives that are dead, and that we would ultimately just live a life to the full. For your name and your glory, in Jesus' name, amen.